Hello, it's Amy with Just a Little Ink. I'm an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up, and I'd love to share with you today a technique that is not new by any means. It's called abstract watercolor, and I'm using it with the Sending Smiles bundle. Currently, the bundle itself is not orderable. The stamp set is. The Stampin' Up's estimate is that the first week of September, the dies should be available. That's what's holding up this particular bundle, but it's a great set, and what I'm using is mostly using the stamp set, so it's well worth the wait. This is in our annual catalog, and so I anticipate it being back in stock. I'm also using the stitched greenery die. That's what gives this beautiful stitched background on the polished pink. So I'm going to go ahead and set these things out of the way for the moment and show you what you need in order to make this card. I'm using a piece of very vanilla thick cardstock. I'm cutting it 4¼ inches by 11. All these measurements will be on my blog, justalittle.ink.com. You also want a piece of, I'm using polished pink, but whatever color you're wanting your flowers to coordinate with. This piece is cut at 3¾ by 4¾ and I've gone ahead and already run that through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. You're going to want 2 pieces of Mossy Meadow. That is the color that I'm using for my greenery. This piece is cut at 2 5/8, if I can read my notes, 2 5/8 by 4 1/8. And then you need another piece cut about 2 inches by 3¾ You're also going to want to have a piece of our adhesive sheets, and I'm going to show you how I attach that. That's what then I use to cut out the sending from the die set. You'll also want a scrap piece of very vanilla cardstock. You could use the thick. This is cut at 1/2 inch by 3 inches, and we're going to use, again, the dies to cut out a note of thanks from there. Then the center of it all is using a piece of our Fluid 100 watercolor paper. Fluid 100 comes in a package. In our annual catalog, I've cut it down. This is a 2½ by 4 inch piece, and I'm actually going to show you both methods. So one method is a lot less messy than the other, but one is more artistic than the other. And so I will show you both methods before we assemble the card. So I'm going to set those things out of the way. I'm going to show you first how to attach this piece. Now, they're cut in 2-inch pieces, and mine somehow I've gotten it just a little over, but it does help to get the strip off. So I'm going to pull off the backing paper, and then I'm going to line it up in the center of my piece of cardstock. Now, and I'm going to pull out the sending die. They're in tubes, so you've got the detailed one, which is what I'm using, and then there's also a layer for sending. We're only going to use the detail. Now pull out my mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. Make sure that you can see what I'm working on. Let's keep those a little bit out of the way. I'm going to get my plate number 1, which is the base plate, with a number 2. Just important that I've got it on the center. I'm going to line up, making sure to have a little bit of an overlap with my plate. That's what will help it run through smoothly. So we'll set the machine out of the way. Get my plates out of the way. And it's a matter of keeping those. Could use that relief for something else. And then I find that using my take your pick tool with the poker end on the other end helps. And you can have these little relief parts that help it to pop out. Okay, so we'll set the die out of the way. Make sure I get all these little pieces popped out. The center of sending. And I think, you know what, we may have, I do that a lot. I think my dot for my eye got stuck inside the sending. Let's hope. Yes, here it is. So I'm going to throw these. That's the one thing you want to keep in mind. It's kind of good sometimes when it doesn't release out. And in this case, it didn't. You see that it's sitting right here. So I'm going to poke it here. It is an itty bitty little piece. I'm going to set it on top, and let's hope we find it later. Just going to set that out of the way up here so that we have sending when we're ready for it. So to start doing our card, fold in half because I've already scored it at 4 1/4 inches. Because we get mini catalogs, which we're in the middle of our July to December mini catalog. We often forget the stamps that are in our annual catalog, and there are so many wonderful ones there. So I've got my card base folded in half. To attach my stitched greenery background, you want quite a bit of adhesive. I found it likes to curl, and so this is one of those times when I'm going to tell you, use more than you think you need. And on here, I angled it. I didn't want it straight. So I'm going to have a little bit of an edge, maybe about 1/8 of an inch at the top, about 1/8 of an inch at the bottom, and about the same top and bottom. Spreads that out, and then I can set that aside. I'm going to pull from the stamp set a note of thanks stamp. These are all photopolymer stamps, and they work best when you use our Pierce mat. And I've taken a brand new Pierce mat and actually cut it in half. And so it makes it just a little easier when I'm doing small projects like this. I'm going to take my note of thanks stamp, make sure I don't get my head in the way too much, stamp it in the center there. Maybe it needs to be a little higher. Beauty of this paper is you've got two sides. See if I did better. Yes, a little bit. Set that out of the way. We will come back to our Pierce mat. So I'm going to pull out one more time my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. This time I want to use this little die here, this kind of a banner in some ways. And I use some retired washi tape just to make sure I've got it holding and not sliding around on me. I've got a couple pieces. Okay, then I'm going to again layer plate 1 with 2 plate 2s. And that's going to then, as I turn this around the correct way, I'm going to run it through. And that will complete all of my die cutting that needs done for this particular card. So I'm going to pop it out here, and then we've got a note of thanks. Set aside the die for the moment. Now to the fun part of embossing. So what I'm going to do is show you the two methods, the messy and the less messy. I'm going to start with my Mossy Meadow, starting with my leaves, my stem and my leaves. And I'm going to ink it up in my ink. And then I'm going to use one of our Stampin' Mist, Stampin' Spritzers. And I'm going to stamp, or I'm going to mist a couple times the more you mist, the messier this will get. And I want it to kind of come at an angle. So I'm going to stamp onto my watercolor paper and I'm going to hold it. And then lift it off. And then I want to do the same thing with my flowers. So I'm going to pull out polished pink. And I'm going to stamp polished pink. And I pull out my Stampin' Mister. And I kind of off to the side a little bit, just so I don't ink up too much. The more you go, this one I maybe did a little too much. One of the advantages, we can take one of my Simply Chamois, clean it up a little bit just because I think I oversprayed. So let's come here and try that again. There we go. Going to mist just a couple times. And I'm going to put it on top. The more you water, this one got a little too watery yet. The more you do, the more watery it looks. Okay, again, I'm going to set the pink aside. And I'm going to use Mango Melody. My pad's a little bubbly, but it works. And I'm going to do the smaller flower. You notice I get a little bit of splatter with this method. So again, you want to be about 6 to 12 inches away. And I'm going to stamp onto my stem. And pull it away. And finally, I'm going to pull out some early espresso for the centers of my dots, or from centers of my flowers. And I found for these, especially the tiny one, that it was best for me really not to mist it. Let's see if I get the center, not too bad. For this larger one, it did help to mist. So I'm going to only try to mist once and get it in the center. See how well I did. Actually better than the previous. And so then I will set this aside to let it dry naturally. If you love what you see, you can order anytime if you don't already have a demonstrator by going to my website, justalittleink.stampinup.net. And please like and share this video if you indeed like the video. So I'm going to show you then the other alternative method, and I'm going to stick it onto, oh my goodness, I can't even tell you the names of things. I'm sticking it onto my release pad is what I'm going to tell you. I know what it is, and I'll put the link in my blog. I don't think I put it here. So on this one, I'm going to mist onto my watercolor paper. It will start to curl some, but we will go in same order that I have done before, making sure I'm not too watery here. I've watered the paper, not the stamp. And so then I'm going to come in, hold the paper a little bit just so it doesn't get in the way. And I'm going to hold the stamp onto the wet paper and then lift it up. And you'll see how it bleeds more. And then I will follow doing the same thing with the flowers while my paper is still wet. And what I've noticed is up here is a little bit dry. So I'm going to make it a little more wet on the top. So we're going to come here, do the same thing, pull away, and one more time with Mango Melody. Probably got that a little drier there. You'll see it bleeding a little bit with where the water is. And then we can come in once more with those centers. Coming in, see how well we do lining that up. Actually, not too bad. So that's the differences. I think one is a definite more artistic look than the other, but I like both. They have a unique look. So we'll set both aside, and I'm going to assemble using this one simply because it's easier when it's drier. So I'm going to layer with my piece of Mossy Meadow. And this is another one of those that I think you need more adhesive on the back of your watercolor paper. Again, you could use your heat tool to dry your watercolored piece, but no two look the same. You can kind of tell, even these don't look exactly the same. And the more water, because I had more water on the pink flower, the more messy it tends to look. I put this then down directly to my card. I did not pop it up with any dimensionals. I'm going to come up here, have it closer to the edge, and I want this piece to be as straight as I can make it. And this is where then I start pulling off. So again, I'm going to pull out my take your pick tool with that pokey end. And see if I can't get this to lift up. This is the backing paper to the adhesive sheet. And so once I get it started, that helps here. Kind of has a way of stretching things out, so you want to make sure to be careful keeping it from going too crazy. And I came pretty close here. So I want it to come like so. It kind of hangs over this edge a little bit, and I found that using my bone folder helped to kind of seat that into the paper. Like so. And then we don't want to forget about that little tiny dot, and I do mean it is a tiny dot. So again, if you can get your fingernail in the center of that, it'll help you to get that relief piece off. And then you can have it positioned so that you can get it onto your cardstock. There you go. And then I am going to use dimensionals on the back of my note of thanks. So I'm going to come here. Whoops, almost. I need 3 of them just to kind of help hold it in place. Like so. If I can get my backs off of that and line it up underneath so that I have sending a note of thanks. And you can kind of come, let's see. Actually, I don't mind that. Depending on how you've got it, it layers just a little differently. Scooted it a little different. But thank you again for joining me. I hope, again, that you will like and share and comment. I'd love to hear from you. I did do one other alternative project just in different colors. I switched out and used this Mango Melody instead of the polished pink. But fun card. As you see, no two were ever the same. Thanks again, and I'll look forward to talking with you again soon. Bye.